I'd like to introduce our speaker today. Domitel is a seasoned Amazonian with experience of working across Europe, the Middle East and Africa in e-commerce and cloud computing technology. She is currently an operational excellence manager in the public sector of Amazon Web Services, responsible for managing operational processes, identifying areas for continuous improvements, and driving efficiency that enable scale and growth. Domitel speaks fluent customer obsession, digital entrepreneurship, women in technology, English and French. Domitel is also the co-managing director of Girls in Tech in the UK, a non-profit organisation dedicated to eliminating the gender gap in tech. She was a finalist of the Women in Tech Global Award 2021, led multiple teams in Women at Amazon, AWS, founded a male allyship programme and scaled it across Europe and Australia. Please welcome Domitel Brett to the webinar today.
Thank you very much, Hannah. Great to be here.
Welcome.
Perfect. So I'm going to be talking about diversity, equity, and inclusion today, specifically through the eyes of allyship. Hannah, if you'd like to go to the next slide, please, that'd be great. So before we start, I'd love to maybe define what allyship is. So allyship is essentially anybody who is very vocal and trying to have actions into helping underrepresented groups within the community and within the organization. We have a group within Amazon that is called Allies at Amazon. And to give a little bit of context, the way we set up this group is because I was part of the Women at Amazon group and quickly realized that we didn't have a lot of men that were involved within the conversation. It quickly became, women talking to women about women issues, and we were missing the very much bigger part of the conversation, which is in a gender equality world, we need to have the men part of that discussion. So this allyship group is very much focused on supporting the Women at Amazon group. We have two goals. One is to increase our male membership and really participation in Women at Amazon. And two is to promote, plan, and execute a number of allyship activities which can very much support women in the workplace and remove any friction that currently exists. The program is live in Iberia, Luxembourg, Australia, the US, and the UK. So we've got teams sort of all across the globe, and we're sort of partnering together in launching those events. If you'd like to go to the next slide, Hannah, please. We have developed a curriculum, which is essentially spread across 4 different pillars. And this is our sort of mission and curriculum that we developed across all those countries. So the first thing that we focus on is educate. Here we very much encourage our allies and our members to educate themselves on what it means to be an ally, learning about different resources. And I'll talk to you about a book that I really recommend in the future. And very much understanding what it is to be a woman in tech currently or in the workplace, and how do we help those to very much remove any friction, as I mentioned. The second pillar is called Emulate. So again, we have a team working in this pillar. Here is very much launching initiatives so that our members understand what it looks like to be a great ally in practice. So it's not just about reading and educating themselves, but it also is about identifying what it means to be a great ally and what are the actions that we can take. Evangelize, our third pillar, is very much where we communicate everything that we do. So it's essentially all the events, the fireside series, all this, the very much, conversation that we have around the topic. This is very much around evangelize. And then we have extend, which is essentially how do we make sure that we build a community of allies across countries? How do we contribute ideas? And how do we recruit more people to join this mission? So extend is around grow it. And by it, we mean the community and the allyship curriculum. If we move on to the next slide, Hannah, that'd be great. An example of initiatives here is very much a speaker series. We also have an allyship journey, which I'm going to talk to you in the next slide. But essentially is understanding when you come to us wanting to become a great ally, where do you currently sit in the journey, and how can we help you move from one stage to the other? We've launched a newsletter. Again, we really want to partner with women at Amazon. This is our key focus right now because this was sort of launched across and in partnership with Women at. But I'll talk you through the different things that we do to partner with other affinity groups too, because Allyship is not just for Women at. We will launch different Allyship challenges, and at the end, we also want to partner with other groups. So by that, what we mean is Allyship is for everyone, and anybody can be an ally. So whilst we decided to start with Women at because it was sort of, you know, the group that we started from, and it was one of the biggest markets for male allies, white male, to support Women at, we want to make sure that we have ally group for every other groups. So there's a slide that I'll walk you through a little bit later on. If we move on to the next slide, Hannah, then I will be able to talk you through the different stages of the allyship journey. So as you can see here, there's essentially 4 stages, potentially 5 within the allyship journey that we very much look at Amazon. The first one is being an ambivalent ally. Someone who's very unsure, undecided, doesn't really understand the challenge or why this is an important thing, and very much starts from zero. Once we move from the ambivalent stage to the next stage, then the allies become aware. Aware is someone who very much sees the value and the benefits of getting involved, but it's someone who's observing, maybe not, you know, being vocal about the issues or topics faced, but it's someone who's recognizing that there is a need for it. We then move to the active stage of allyship, which is someone who's very well informed, but also very much wanting to get involved, to get engaged, and to talk about the different topics. It's someone who's a supporter and someone who's very much learning to influence others to change their behaviors. And the final stage of this series and this journey is very much becoming advocates. And this is what we all thrive for. How do we become advocates within the allyship journey? And an advocate is someone who's always learning, always trying to observe and to be proactive into what it is that they can do to support the communities around them. And very much how they can change behaviors where those are not appropriate or not inclusive enough. So it's very much someone who will take action to support that sphere. There's one thing that we always say within Amazon is that to become a great ally, it's a journey, but if you become an advocate, it doesn't mean that the journey ends. You always need to learn, you always need to understand the different issues. It's very much a lot of things that you can learn about depending on which sort of group you want to support the most. And therefore we say that, you know, once you go through that circle, you need to actually go through it again to become the best ally possible. So if we move on to the next slide, we can then discuss a little bit more about beyond. So as I've mentioned, we are a Women at Allies group. However, a very big focus for us this year is going to be to expand that mission across other groups. At Amazon, we have a number of affinity groups, as you can see. We have Asians at Amazon, we have Glamazon, we have Warriors, we have the Black Network group. All of those different, you know, groups also need allies to support them. And one of our key mission is piloting this program within Women at Amazon, because obviously this is where we started from, and you know, having white males support women is definitely one of the key markets. But we also want to expand this to every other affinity group so that we can develop those allyship ties across those groups, those partnerships, and those missions that are super important. So we'll sort of trying to build that community of allies to very much share best practices, to share what worked, to share what didn't, and to really get that conversation going and how it is that we you know, can really help those people to focus and to reach the goals that they need, to help them in career advancement, to help them feel, you know, happier, to really increase retention rate of the company, to lead to higher productivity. There's a number of really fantastic, you know, KPIs that are, you know, coming from this allyship journey, from you know, being more productive in the workplace to also being a happier and more fulfilled person, thanks to a more inclusive environment. So if you want to go to the next slide, Hannah, that'd be great. And here I've added a little bit of a launch plan. Creating an allyship group is something that we've done through a number of steps, through a number of stakeholders, and as you've seen, a number of countries. So here is sort of what we followed during that journey. First of all, we decided to recruit sponsors. We wanted to make sure that because we were partnering with an existing affinity group, Women at Amazon, we had support within that group to really very much, you know, understand that this was needed and it was very much welcomed. So we recruited advisory positions. And we very much had sponsors across different regions who could help us sort of advise on next steps and very much keep us real into what it is that we needed to deliver to very much help them achieve their goals of the year. We then chose the focus group. So as I've mentioned, there's multiple ones that you can really support. We chose women, but we will expand as we go along in this journey. We then build our organizational design. So the way we're set up, as I've said, we have 4 different pillars. We have leads for each pillars. And then we have a committee of 3 leads that sort of manage the entire program, and then volunteers within all of those pillars. Something that's super important here is to make sure that the volunteers who join us, really get to develop skills that they would not necessarily be able to do in their day job, and they be able to take responsibility on things that they really want to have an impact on. So we try to, give time commitment estimation. We try to give role description. We make sure that we have weekly meetings, one-to-one conversation with their leads, because as a volunteering org, keeping everyone involved and delivering on results is super important. So that leads me to sort of recruiting those volunteers and very much driving accountability for those roles. We then really treat it as a business. So it is a volunteering org. We have social events, quarterly meetings, etc. But we also need to deliver very important outcomes, because this is what we promise to our sponsors and to the different groups that we partner with. So in that sense, we always build a 1 to 3 year operating plan to very much see what it is that we want to achieve, what is our vision, and unlock those sort of partnership that we need to have to make this happen. We leverage different tools, and we very much make sure that everyone is included across the different regions where this has launched. Something that's super important as well, and this leads me to the next step, is recognizing great work. Because it's something that we do on top of our day job, we have fantastic individuals and volunteers that really work with us in making this pillar and this entire program a success. And therefore, recognizing that great work, sharing it with their different teams, with their managers, making sure that they recognize what it is that they do is very, very important for us, because we want to make sure that, not only do they learn about new skills, but they also recognize what they do. And then we're able to expand and, very much share that vision that we have across more countries and across more teams. We then finally advertise events and open roles. So we have quarterly meetings with Women at in terms of recruitment stunts. We make sure that we always have those available into our sort of internal knowledge tool. And we have, point of contacts and recruitment managers that really take care of sort of managing those resources and the different talents that want to join us. We have a great newsletter as well that sort of outlines, the different events that we do, the partnership that we build. We have a sort of speaker series, and we have this sort of poll where we very much share profiles of the people in our teams and the very diverse backgrounds that they bring into the community. And finally, the way that we always, sort of launch new events and very much make sure that we meet the needs of our communities and our groups is working backwards from data. So we share this annual survey where we collect as much data as possible into what went right, what didn't go as expected, what do our members want to see more next year, and how we can very much make sure that we meet their needs in the long term. And this data is super important for us, because not only does it, sort of share what it is that we'll be doing in the next few months, but it also shares the sort of satisfaction rates, and it gives us more ideas into what we can do better in the future. So that's it for the Allies at Launch plan, Hannah. So here are tenets. Now, I'm not going to read them all, but essentially you'll see that this is what we work backwards from for everything that we do within the Allies at group. So it's everything from, member ownership to having things that are male action oriented. We want to make sure that we support the women at group. We very much measure success, and we want to make sure that everyone is very included within that sphere and that we can have a broader impact in the long term. Thank you, Hannah. This is something that I've also added because we're often asked, why should I volunteer with Women at, or why should I volunteer with Allies at Amazon? There's a number of opportunities that you can have just beyond having a very positive impact on the community. You get to meet fantastic people from all over the org. You get to network and learn more about what it means to be an Amazonian, what it means to be a great ally, and you can volunteer very much across the entire business. We also launched great sessions in partnership with Women at. We launched career session, mentoring session, coaching sessions, and all of those things. Obviously, we do them for our members, but anybody can access them. So it's very much the opportunity for you to, as a lead, as a manager, to very much learn more about what it is that you can do to support others, but also to support yourself in your career and in your development. And then you and your life. I think this one is super important, specifically, you know, with COVID and the entire crisis that's happened. Very much understanding what is work-life balance, what does it mean, you know, to have flexible working, and how can you support your teams to make sure that they have the right resources they need to be as happy as they can be at work, and very much fulfilled in the way that they deliver their results. Thank you, Hannah.
Thank you, Domitel. That's absolutely brilliant. I really appreciate you joining us and sharing your experiences with us. We're going to move on now to questions. If anyone has any questions, we've had a few pre-submitted ones, so I shall start with those. What actions should an ally take to address negative behaviours within their teams or organisations?
I think that's a really good question and a very important one. There's a number of things that I would say are important. Number one is asking the team members and the people around you about their experiences at work and beyond. I think it's super important to listen as well, to very much understand that there are different perspectives that we might not see. And then engaging, you know, there's a number of events, there's a number of fireside chats. It's important to very much commit to the cause and to engage with it and really try to understand what is going on in that sphere. And then finally, let's speak up. It's very important to become an advocate, and by becoming an advocate, it's really crucial to call out bad behavior when and where you see it. And I think, you know, those sort of 4 actions are very much helpful in taking and addressing those negative behaviors.
Thank you, that's great. So just moving on to the next one. What makes a good ally, and do different genders need to approach allyship in different ways?
So I'd say a good ally is very much someone who exhibits all of the actions that we've just discussed, but I think it's also someone who would recognize their privilege, accept feedback from, you know, different marginalized groups, maybe sponsoring initiatives and individuals, and essentially building a community of allies around them and in their org. I think it's also someone who consistently educates him or herself. You can do so, you know, by reading books. There's a great one that I really recommend that's called Invisible Women by Caroline Criado Perez. Fantastic book. But there's also a number of podcasts, articles, etc. that you can read. So all of those resources are super important. Regarding the gender question, I don't think that, you know, the action we've discussed are based on gender. I think based on the group of allies that you want to support, there may be different actions or outcomes, but I don't think this is very much based on gender. Anybody can be an ally, and the actions are very much similar.
Great, thank you very much. And another question is, how can you make the biggest impact as an individual to help as an ally?
Yeah, that's a really interesting question. I think for me, the key is very much realizing that being an ally is not just volunteering or something that you do on the side, but it should be part of who we are as, you know, professionals, individuals, human, and really incorporate it into our daily life, at work and outside. So for me, this is how we can have the biggest impact, is very much by being allies every day.
That's great. That's great. So 2 more questions in. One is, how can you make the biggest, oh sorry, one more. Can we all be allies, or does an ally need leadership?
So I really believe that we can all be allies, and we should all be allies, and there's no requirement for someone to become one. So that's independent of role, gender, seniority, and organization. I do think, however, that leaders and managers are the sort of connection point between an organ and an individual, and having them sponsor initiatives can sometimes help strengthening the message and increase its reach across the different teams and groups.
It's fantastic. And any more questions from the audience? I'm just a bit over to the audience to see whether they've got any questions. Let me just check here. I think that's it from the audience too. Thank you so much, Domitel, for joining us today and sharing your experience and the work that you've been doing. It's been really interesting. I hope that everyone else has enjoyed it and got a lot out of that they can take forward. I'm going to just share with you our